those 70-ton blocks lifted 350 feet in the air, covering the roof of the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid. Impossible to explain in terms of leverage and mechanical advantage, but perhaps another explanation is needed.
Also so profoundly advanced in terms of their ability to move immensely huge objects that it makes you consider in a way where we're talking about, look, even if we use the conventional dating of 2500 BC, how? Like what was available? How did they do that? Like what?
I've never seen a satisfactory explanation from the Egyptological fraternity as to how this was done. They keep coming up with multiple theories about how the Great Pyramid was built, and none of them make any sense to me. I've been lucky enough to climb the Great Pyramid 5 times. I've explored every internal passageway. This thing is just a gigantic mystery in stone. It challenges us to think again about everything in the ancient world. The fact that it incorporates the dimensions of our planet in its key dimensions, that you can take the height of the Great Pyramid and multiply by 43,200 and you get the polar radius of the Earth. You can measure the base perimeter of the Great Pyramid, multiply it by the same number, you get the equatorial circumference of the Earth. I won't bore you, but that number is not a random number. Anybody who goes into my books will find that it relates to the obscure astronomical phenomenon called precession of the equinoxes. Great Pyramid is almost perfectly aligned to true north within 3/60ths of a single degree. 13-acre footprint, 6 million tons, 481 feet high, and aligned to true north with this incredible precision. I think they're trying to tell us something. When the pyramid speaks to our planet, it speaks to this Earth. It's aligned to true north. And it's built on a scale that models the dimensions of the Earth, and that scale is derived from a key motion of the Earth itself. It's very, very clever. And again, I try and mention this to archaeologists. They say, it's just a coincidence. It's just rubbish. That's what they say. And it's such a lazy way to dismiss the data, rather than getting to grips with the data and saying, could this really have happened by coincidence, or is something going on here?
See, there are these key numbers that recur over and over again. We find them in the Vedas, we find them in the Bible, we find them in Mayan traditions. They were in Sumeria over and over again. And one of those key numbers, what Bert Graham just said, 43,200. Or, and even in the way we still measure time today, if you think about how do we measure the length of one rotation of the Earth on its axis, the meridian lining up with the center of the sun. We've divided that into seconds, right? Minutes, hours. 24 hours is the exact period of the Earth's rotation with respect to the sun. Okay? 24 hours times 60 means there's 86,400 seconds exactly in that period. On the moment of vernal equinox, the period of time of darkness and of light are exactly equal, 43,200. That number is the scaling ratio of the pyramid. If we were to take the pyramid as it is today on the Giza Plateau, enlarge it by a factor of 43,200, as Graham said, the height of it is literally within a few hundred feet of being the polar radius of the Earth. And in fact, the range of error is within the range of error of our most accurate modern satellite surveys. And when I come back, I could easily demonstrate that.
We'll do that.
I put together the slides to show exactly how it's done, the geometry of the height, the ratio of the height to the square base solves the ancient geometric problem of the squaring of the circle. Because what they've basically done is that if you enlarge that pyramid by 43,200, the square base now becomes precisely the equatorial circumference of the Earth. Precisely. And for somebody to say this is just coincidence, well, if it was one example, or two examples, no, there's dozens of examples like this where you could show that somehow somebody seemed to know something beyond what they've been given credit for.
Something that they shouldn't have known at the time that structure is supposed to have been built. What we're looking at in the Great Pyramid and many other structures around the world, staring us in the face, almost slapping us in the face, is evidence of a lost technology. And yet it's so resisted and so sneered upon by mainstream academia. This is one of the things I really find very uncomfortable about archaeology, is the way that they sneer at alternative ideas. You know, the fact that I've taken psychedelics, that is used against me all the time by my critics. Oh, you know, Hancock takes drugs, so you shouldn't listen to anything that he says.
That's what I tell my kids.
But excuse me, what a lazy way
Yeah.
to dismiss an alternative argument. Just with
It's
insults.
very lazy. Yeah, it's silly. It's also, it's like, what has he gotten out of those drugs, and why are you so dismissive of that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so fascinated by the possibility of this ancient technology existing and what form it existed in. If they really did have the ability to calculate as you're describing, and they did it with such incredible accuracy, and the way you're laying it out, it's almost undeniable. The possibility of coincidence is far less than the possibility of calculation.
Yeah, absolutely. And yet this lazy dismissal is used to keep people locked in a particular framework of thinking. And that's what we're trying to disrupt. We're disruptors. We're contrarians. And I think there's a need for disruptors and contrarians in the world, no matter how much they insult me, no matter how much they insult Randall. The information that we're putting out there, sooner or later, is going to do some good.
How far back do you think this technology goes? You know, I keep pressing this because I want to get an understanding of, like, what's the long end of this? How far back do you think human sophisticated civilization existed? If the conventional idea is ancient Sumer, 6,000 Mesopotamia, 6,000 plus years ago, how far do you think we're talking about?
Well, first and foremost, I can't give you absolute facts here.
Right.
I'm working on my ideas about the past. I think it's a civilization that went back deep into the last ice age, maybe as far back as 100,000 years into the past. I think it's a civilization that emerged out of hunter-gatherer societies and emerged out of shamanism. You encounter shamans in the Amazon rainforest today who are using ayahuasca. Well, ayahuasca is a miracle in itself. You know, there's 100,000 plus different species of plants and trees in the Amazon. You have to put two of them together to create the ayahuasca brew. One of them contains DMT, and the other contains a monoamine oxidase inhibitor. DMT is not orally active. That's why we have to smoke it in order to get the effect. But what they've done in the Amazon is make it orally active by combining it with the ayahuasca vine